Hello, fellow explorers. It's great to be here to talk to you about the West Arctic. I'm joined by some colleagues who will be introduced shortly and also a team in the background. So as Lee said, please do put your questions in the chat and we will try and follow them as we go through and also have a question and answer session at the end. Just over a year ago, we did a webinar on the whole of the Arctic, and that was really pushing it. So this year we split up for two sessions, this one on the West Arctic, and our definition here is we have Alaska, Arctic, Canada, Northwest Passage, and also Eastern Canada. We will be doing a separate East Arctic webinar next week, next Wednesday, so please join us as well if you want to hear more about Greenland, Iceland, Svalbard, and Norway. So that's our rough definition, and we'll be going through area by area, and then, as I said, we'll be going through questions at the end. I'm joined today, very fortunate to be joined by our chief scientist, Dr. Verena Meraldi, has been with HX for coming up to 20 years now. Karin Strand, our VP of Expedition Development, is even longer with the company, over 25 years now. So I'm a newbie, only been around probably, I think, first came across in about almost 20 years ago as well.
Yeah.
But between us, we've got plenty of experience and things to share with you. So that's the aim of today. But to start us off, I'll just talk a little bit about our HX history. We're coming up to our 130th year, being born out of Hurtigruten, and the first sailing from Norway up to Svalbard in 1896. What defines us as a brand is very much working for and made for curious travelers. So that's very much our science and education part, and our leaders in mindful adventure, which is very much sub-brand, subtext sustainability. So that's really what makes us and curates our expeditions. And we really aim to change the way you see the world by really taking you to these offbeat destinations and really interpreting them in a way that's really rich and rewarding. All our voyages are curated around what we call the perfect balance between adventure, comfort, and sustainability. And what we mean by that is our heritage and history in terms of bringing in that adventure and really working in that mix of excursions, nature landings, and activities, mixed with the Scandinavian comfort of our ships, where it's a really warm and friendly feeling with incredible dining options and just super relaxed and comfortable. So I always enjoy it when I'm on board the ship. And I mentioned about sustainability, where we really look at being as transparent as possible. We published an annual ESG report, which we share our emissions, etc. But we also work really hard with local suppliers in terms of sourcing local food, and also have a massive science and education program with lots of partners, which Verena will talk to us about. Those that are new to expedition cruising, then we're really talking about using our ships as a platform to take you to places that you can't get there any other way. So we're working in remote destinations. Our ships are purpose-built for these activities, using small boats to access even more remote regions. We have a team of experts, expedition teams, and scientists on board to interpret the destination, and we have lots of those activities that really bring everything to life. In terms of our ships, we have everything now, as we've been running for a year, as all-inclusive. So when you're on board, you don't have to dip your hand into your pockets. And that includes normal drinks, cocktails, coffees, Wi-Fi, our expedition photographer, and the daily part, and as well as gratuities. So those are all included. We also supply to all our guests expedition jacket, which is wind and waterproof and resistant. You can see those nice blue jackets there. We loan you expedition boots, which are a muck type boot, or Wellington, which you can use for landings, particularly wet landings, but they're super comfortable. And we also supply walking sticks, so you don't have to travel with those elements. And of course, also a water bottle with our partners Ocean Bottle. So there's those elements as standard. As we're talking about the West Arctic, our two ships that we'll be talking about and do the itineraries are our beautiful sister ships here, brilliantly photographed facing each other. But the Roald Amundsen and Nansen launched in 2019 and 2020. And it's great that we've got the godmother of Amundsen in the call, Karin. Yeah, we're in really good hands that we've got the ship's godmother with us. Maritime tradition, every ship has a godmother, so it's brilliant that we have our own godmother here. Our ships, as I mentioned, are really comfortable, very relaxed, gorgeous cabins, everything from hot tubs, sauna, spa, etc., and also these incredible dining options. But enough about us as a company and our ships. We're here to talk about where we go. So Alaska, we're going to start with Alaska and British Columbia, then we're going to go on to Northwest Passage, and then Canadian Arctic or East Canadian Arctic archipelago. So Alaska, we do 4 main itineraries in Alaska. We do all our trips start in Vancouver this coming year, sorry, I'm wrong. They start in Vancouver, but they also do trips back to Vancouver, so back and forth. Some longer trips up to Nome. So a good variety for seeing the coast. And then in terms of variety, Verena, you're our chief scientist. Tell us a little bit about the diversity and what we see in Alaska.
Well, Alaska is one of the only places in the planet, together with the British Columbia, of course, where you can have this very contrasting combination of rainforest, that, like the image that you see here, that are mostly dominated by Sitka spruce, but most of the trees are also covered with moss, and you have ferns and very lush vegetation everywhere. So it's a very dense and beautiful forest that obviously, when you have glacial landscapes, it's super contrasting, and it's one of the only places on the planet where you get to experience this so striking contrast of ice and beautiful forests. So for me, that is one of the main reasons to go to Alaska. But in addition, you also have incredible wildlife, and you get the opportunity, if you are at the right time and at the right place, to see them interacting in the natural environment, like by a river. When the salmon is returning to the breeding grounds, you will get to see either eagles or bears trying to fish those salmons, and just being there, surviving, and giving you the amazing opportunity of see them in their natural environment. So for me, Alaska is the destination to really consider.
And I think, for me, that contrast you share, when I've been in that situation, that mix of the smell of the rainforest and that humidity, and then you go out onto the water a bit, and the coldness of the glaciers and the sort of that alpine, the mountains coming straight, that alpine scenery at sea level. That contrast, it just blows me away.
It's beautiful, and because of that, also you very often get the sea fog that is also incredible to experience, because you see the landscape coming and going, disappearing, and very misty atmosphere around you. So yeah, beautiful place to go.
And Karin, you were involved, well, still involved very much in when we planned these itineraries. I remember back, when we did our first season there in 2017, 18, 18 maybe, 19. Anyway,
19.
it all blurs. It all comes into one. But what's the sort of highlights in terms of, this, in terms of the topography and the scenery for you?
I think what Verena said about forest and glacial landscape is, there is the only place I know. I mean, and we've been going all over the Arctic, and we kind of looked at all the differences, but there is nowhere where you see this magnitude. I mean, we do have glaciers in Norway as well. I'm coming from there, but not glaciers that kind of run still run into the fjords and to the sea like they do in Alaska. The vastness of that state is incredible. And I was just looking at that picture of the bear. You know, I mean, if you, and I'm just saying this is why it is good to do a ship voyage, and that is, most of the time, if you are doing a voyage like this on land, you would not want to have a bear at that distance. You would not like to see a bear at that distance at all. I mean, it's true. So, I mean, the fact that, you know, you're in a very safe environment and are able to almost seek out the wildlife, or wanting to see the wildlife in their right habitat, and in the, you know, without disturbing it, because that's really important to us. Is quite unique, because if you were on a walking trip, or if you were on a trip, you would close your doors and beg the thing to go away. But here you wouldn't.
And it's feeding season, isn't it? You know, so the bears, the eagles, they're all,
the salmon is coming back.
Salmon, you know, so, you know, that interaction, of course, you know, disturbance, you know, we don't want to disturb the wildlife at all.
No.
But the fact that they're so focused on feeding, those interactions that we can have, just really, well, not interactions, but how up close we can see in a safe way is really special. And really,
this is where our exactly. This is where our field brains come in again, Tudor, Verena, is that, you know, we put a lot of effort in knowing and interpreting animal behavior, so that we do understand when we are too close. We understand, or we shouldn't go too close, but that we're not disturbing that feeding frenzy, as you were talking about. Really, really important.
And you know, one of the other really special things about Alaska is the rich culture, you know, from the Inuit culture through to, you know, modern day America, and that mix. What's sort of been the highlights, Karin, for you in terms of, you know, going and seeing and experiencing culture? And our trips, we do these packages in the towns that our product team work with the local community. What are the highlights we can bring out?
I think that it goes to the depth of getting to know the community proper. Not just scratching the surface and sort of, here we go, and kind of look at the houses, but proper. And that means taking it all in. It means that there are many facets of these small communities. There are some that are more focused on, you know, their Western heritage. Then you have the kind of the Inuit, or the minority, or no, they're not. I don't know what to call them these days. I mean, there are so many words, and I'm afraid of saying something wrong here.
But
native, exactly. And there are what I found really interesting is that, you know, you can call them native as one collective, but then when you kind of go into the weeds of it, there is from tribe to tribe. And I think that is what fascinated me most, was to see how extremely many tribes there are just in the course of our voyage from, you know, from Vancouver and up. And I still sort of like to go or delve even deeper into that to that world. And I think we have still just scratched the surface. But I think that has astonished me most.
And the variety, or the change as you go north. You know, as the ship's repositioning overnight, when you're sleeping comfortably and eating on board, you know, when you wake up, the variety from, you know, as you go, or if you go north or south, is just really incredible. And Verena, I've got a picture of the townhouse here on Shakes Island, which is an old house, but I know you love Inuit art.
I do. Yes, and Alaska is the place to really take all of this in the form of entrances like these, or the totems that are also found. And it is also an incredible experience to see the local people carving these amazing figures on the wood and painting them, and just sharing with them the significance that this kind of structures have for the native populations here. It's fabulous.
And the importance of the raven and the eagle, and I love the depiction of the orca, the killer whale.
Yes, and all of the animals, completely integrated into their cultures, and
and they have distinct meanings of the afterlife. A lot of them as well.
Yeah,
they focus a lot on that, and but also, you know, do you remember? I mean, what I found also interesting is it's not just Western culture, but also it comes from Russia. I mean, you know, when you have these Orthodox, I mean, but you can't see that much elsewhere in the Arctic as much. This is really, you could see the closeness to all. So those onion-shaped churches, and the Orthodox even religion, how much that has had to say. I found it really, I think Alaska is underestimated for its cultural diversity.
And of course, because of the access to wood and timber, then a lot more is preserved in that cultures compared to where we go up into Arctic Canada and the likes.
Very true.
So no, fantastic. So I think again we could talk about Alaska, but we'll show you at the end where you can access more information about specific destinations, and we're doing the broad brush approach today in our West Arctic chat now. But in summary, we'd say that Alaska, the diversity that you have in Alaska is incredible, from the natural wonders, the culture, the differences in the communities, and those interactions with those communities as you go north or south. That variety is massive. So somewhere where you can see, we all love it. But we're going to move on to the Northwest Passage, and people ask, what is the Northwest Passage? So this fabled sea route from the east to the west, or the west to the east, where really centuries ago, even 300 years ago, looking at reducing the trade route to save going around Cape Horn for the trade with the Orient. We do trips going both ways. So trips from heading east to west from Nuuk to Nome, and then also we do a trip from Nome back to Greenland. This map is depicting the east to west route. But Karin mentioned the sort of influence from Russia. Of course, at one point, Alaska was part of Russia, but also as we sail to and from Nome, we go very close to the international date line and past Little Diomede and Great Diomede, where one's just to one side is Russia and one side is the US. So a very special place. Of course, one of the really things for me for the Northwest Passage is the history, and that history of finding the sea routes, but also from the British point of view of the early exploration of the Navy ships and putting these ships with massive crews to try and find the route. But then, of course, the fabled Franklin expedition where Erebus and Terror were lost, and then the mythology that's come from that, and understanding, which is only coming out in recent years, of what actually happened when they found the ships, and also working and listening to the local Inuit who knew what happened, but of course they weren't trusted at the time. But that's something for us all to be told. The first crossing of the Northwest Passage was made by Roald Amundsen, very much part of our heritage at HX. Of course, our ship, Roald Amundsen, we're talking about, and also Nansen, who was both of them pioneers in Arctic exploration, and very much there. So Amundsen went through in 1906 in the Yoa, and Joe Haven, as North Americans call it, spelt Yoa. If you're Karin from Norway,
you don't say that.
Still call it Yoa Haven, but of course it's Joe Haven. But in terms of the Northwest Passage, there have been so few transits. In total, including all marine traffic, which bulk carriers trade, there's been about 430 crossings, of which just around 100 have been from passenger vessels, including the Yoa. So very few people get the opportunity and privilege to be able to attempt and get through the Northwest Passage. It is a voyage of massive diversity, and Karin,
contrast.
Contrast.
Yeah. So if we go east to west, you start with if you're going to sort of take a topo journey right now, you start with alpine landscape, in the very east of Canada or Arctic Canada, in Lancaster Sound area, and then you move down through the Bellot Strait, and then it becomes flatter and flatter and flatter. And this is naturally because of ice and erosion and ice caps that had been, melting and creating that landscape. And it becomes flatter by the day as you go through the Northwest Territories, moving then towards a little bit more hilly towards the end. But it's a very, very the landscape is not the Norwegian fjords all through it, but it's fable, and it's very unique to just be in those waters, I have to say. So I really like that contrast. And here you can see this is like a good picture of what you kind of can see across the board. This is beachy, which is more in the east. However, those hills in the background will disappear for a few days when you come further west, where you basically only see these flat beaches and long stretches with scattered with snow and gravel.
And of course, in all our voyages, we try and bring in that mix of the culture, heritage, the scenery, wildlife when we can, and we're going to talk about wildlife a bit later. But this is a real famous site, Beachy Islands, where the Franklin graves, or not Franklin's grave, but 4 of the team from Franklin are there. And very much where when you go ashore, it's really haunting. But this was the first clues of what happened to all those men on the 2 ships. So incredible site to visit. But I think that point you made, Karin, about the Northwest Passage trip is like the ultimate expedition, polar legacy, and
absolutely
that transit. And it makes sense that we'll talk east to west. That transit in topography, I mean, it's a long journey, but that the change in topography, the change in culture is really staggering, and that whole following in the footsteps, just really, really magic. And although we're there in the peak of summer, you can see when this photo is taken, it's Arctic Canada, and you can get some incredibly cold wind, really chills things down. Still a lot of snow on the ground in places. So yeah, a real diversity. But you can also get some nice days. Of course, here we have the legacy of the Hudson Bay Company. I think this is Dundas Harbour. Is that right, Karin?
I think this is Fort Ross.
Fort Ross. It's just a bit further south. I think you're right. But yeah, that's part of very much the history of the exploration with the Hudson Bay Company, which, in fact, I just read a book about the history of the Hudson Bay Company. Absolutely fascinating. If people want to know more about the exploration of the whole of North America, absolutely incredible. But one of the really big things for the Northwest Passage, as well as the scenery and how the landscape changes through the whole journey, is the communities, and visiting the native communities. And I mentioned wrongly in the Alaska, not everybody in Alaska is an Inuit. I should have said native population, but in Arctic Canada Northwest Passage, then they are Inuit. But we aim to visit all these 4 sort of highlights from Pond Inlet, Joe Haven, Cambridge Bay, Ulahaktok. And of course, Verena, I noticed you were telling me you just came back from Greenland and you bought an ulu. Tell us a little bit about an ulu. Because it's quite, Ulahaktok's the home there, but you bought one in Greenland, but talking of sharing cultures.
Yeah, well, the ulu is a traditional tool that was used by women mostly to prepare the seals after they had been hunted. They would cut them open with the ulu and separate the skin from the flesh, and it's perfectly shaped so that you can use it and also use it to soften the skin once it has been separated from the flesh. So was like the most important tool for Inuit women in Greenland. So it's a beautiful piece of memory that I bought for myself. They are not cheap, I must also say. And they were originally made out of bones or stone, and now, of course, they are also made out of metal. Beautiful, beautiful thing to get if you like mementos like that to remind you of those wonderful trips.
You can see the outline of an ulu as the symbol above Ulahaktok.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's where it's named from. Yeah, so it's
for those of you who can then envision what Verena has bought. It's a knife.
For me, one of the real things is the warmth of the local communities and those relationships we've developed from working in Arctic Canada or in the Northwest Passage for, I think we're sort of 8-9 seasons in this area, and that relationship with the teams, the packages they put on for us, you go back and see friends, and we always bring not only work with the community, but we also bring the elders on the ship, and some as time allows also some of the children. So it's about working in partnership with the community, and you can see, Karin, myself, and Verena have a joke about me being a giant and them being dwarfs, but I do feel quite tall when I'm in some of these places.
True.
I can't hide, but it's useful if I'm working as expedition leader because everyone can see me.
No, you don't need the umbrella like the rest of us.
Exactly. So that's great. And of course, we are in places steeped with history, and this is the memorial to Armenton. This is Joe Haven, where he wintered and spent time with the Nestalik Inuit, and he learned a lot about the Northwest Passage. They learned a lot about what happened to Franklin, and there were lots of clues. But this is where he wintered in the Yoa.
And look now how the landscape is changing. This is now you're coming more west, and you see that those plains are starting to manifest themselves.
And we have a big program. We've just partnered with a local provider called Arctic Kingdoms to really give even more deep and meaningful led excursions when we visit these places, to give really, I was going to say, really sort of smaller, intimate opportunities for our guests in these places. So including everywhere we do a town package, but really those in depth, and that we've been working with Arctic Kingdoms now for 2 or 3 years, and our product team has set up these new excursions for us with our partners there. So really sort of in depth and exciting things to be able to do in the Northwest Passage. We will talk about wildlife a little bit later, but we're gonna keep on moving east and head to Arctic Canada. But is there anything else, Karin or Verena, that I've missed on Northwest Passage that you?
No, I think that the only thing is that the variety of the excursions we're having now is, it goes from flight seeing to fishing to summer cabin visits to even playing bingo with the community and and so forth. So I think there is what Arctic Kingdom has done is that they have kind of grasped the gist of but a little bit more than just gracing the surface.
And I think that the one thing that when I mentioned about the communities and but on all our trips in the Northwest Passage and elsewhere in the world, we aim to have cultural ambassadors. So we have at least 2 cultural ambassadors brought in a team of locals as well on board that work with our guests and our expedition teams to really interpret the landscape. So it's not just when you're in a community. So we get that that full-on immersive experience about local culture, hearing about local culture, workshops on board, doing all sorts of different weird and wonderful things with the team. And so some brilliant people that we've had now season after season on board our ships. So yeah, we've got a really good relationship. Okay, Arctic Canada. So when we talk about Arctic Canada, we do have a bit of crossover, which we will cover in our East Arctic webinar next week, because we have some voyages that are partly in Greenland and partly in Eastern Canada. So like this Baffin Bay circumnavigation, which we're doing for the first year, like this coming season. And we've also got some trips that go from Nuuk down into Labrador and Newfoundland. So when we talk about those, there is a little bit of crossover. So we're not going into depth on these, but we wanted to share a bit more about Eastern Canada. The trip around the Baffin Bay circumnavigation also does a little bit into the Canadian Arctic archipelago, so it does go up into the areas of Ellesmere and those places. So there's a little bit of crossover, but not in depth like the other trips. And we were joking about this slide. Of course, Karin's Norwegian and Viking Queen. So Karin, tell us, and she wanted to keep this in, so this is all yours.
Yeah. Well, you're kind of we're going in the trails. I mean, we are Norwegian heritage. I mean, we can't escape that as well. So I mean, we kind of take with us a little bit of the history, and the history that kind of connects Greenland with Canada from that perspective is that, around 1970, when we were in our blooming self, Vikings all over the place, or fleeing the country, because we were a very divided country. There were small kings on every corner. So those who wanted to be kings somewhere else had to go somewhere else, and that's what we kind of see them going westwards, right? So we have the Shetlands, we have the Faroes, and what do you think? Iceland, and Eric the Red fled out of his isolation there and went to Greenland, and that's kind of where we start our journey here. So the two westernmost places where the Vikings made their trails very visible was, of course, in South Greenland, where you can see to the very bottom right from Valse, where you see churches still left. So obviously this was at the time when Christianity started to grab the Vikings too. It was not just Odin and Thor all over the place. And then you cross over the Labrador Sea, and the excavations have then shown in modern times that there were Viking settlements in lands of meadows, for example, which is also part of this journey. So there is a red kind of thread of history from the Norwegian heritage that we kind of carry on our shoulders, from Brattahlid to St. Anthony and to lands of meadows, which both on crafts, what they did, how they made their discoveries. You can see the parallels there, which I think is the fascination when you do a journey like this. You have time to kind of delve into it, and our teams will as well.
This is a in the wake of the Vikings. I think we once called this when we did this trip before, but it really is, and following that history is really fun. And of course, the symbol, and similar to Nunavut and Nunavut, the symbol of the region are these stone cairns, which are you see in lots of places in varying states. But the scenery of the west of Baffin Bay, Sagleg Fjord, and that mix slightly further north with the ice, and you get to places further south which seem you know, a lot warmer, and then you get a massive iceberg coming past you because there's no Gulf Stream, unlike the UK and Norway, where the similar latitude. So you really get those hazards to shipping, but and those contrasts. So a really really stunning place. And yeah, I think, you know,
amazing.
I've got lots of favorites, but the trips I've done there, I've absolutely loved it. Yeah. I'm conscious I've been told that we've got some amazing questions, so we're going to keep on moving, and we keep you very busy on board, but we have our chief scientist who heads up our science and education program. Verena, over to you.
Thank you, Tudor. So yes, we just not bring you to amazing places, but we also try to immerse you as best as possible into everything related to that destination. And for that, we have our science and education program, which consists of lectures and workshops and history, storytelling, hands-on activities on our science centers that are fully equipped for you to experience things on a more personal way. We invite you to join us in sessions where we will look through the microscopes. We invite you on deck to come and spot wildlife, to talk about important points in the landscape as well, interpret those important places. And yes, we also do some activities off the ship when we are doing landings or cruising on our small boats. We participate in a number of citizen science projects that you can be a part of and contribute to data collection in these very remote areas. And we also invite you to help us collect oceanographic data on our science boat. All this information will be shared with research institutions. And in order to be super prepared for the science and education program and to contribute to the citizen science projects, we always invite you to download the applications that are required to participate, and for you to familiarize yourself a bit more on what to expect on board. And here we have an example of the QR codes that we share with you before you join the trips. And if I would ask Tudor, he would immediately tell me that his favorite application is the one to the right. And it's called Merlin iBird. It's an incredible app if you like birds, if you want to learn more about birds. This app allows you to recognize the birds or identify them, even if you don't see them, by the songs they sing. So it's incredible. Am I right, Tudor?
And I'm a geologist, so things that move aren't natural to me, but I'm absolutely addicted to Merlin. You go on a walk, you have to put Merlin on, and then spotting the bird. So yeah, it's on most days. It's I recommend downloading it now. If you do nothing else, download Merlin. Thanks, Verena. Karin, I know your favorite activity is kayaking.
Yes.
This is great fun going kayaking with you. You frightened the hell out of me. But talk about the
that was
activity.
The meaning.
Yeah, tell us a bit about what we get up to off the ship.
So off the ship, together with the science boat is a sort of off the ship activity. Yeah. But we do the kayaking. We are just about to expand our kayaking program with an inflatable kayak program, which I'm working very hard at these days. And of course, we do these nature landings, which is kind of the core. I mean, that is where we're able to use our small boats to get you ashore. Then we have the expedition boat cruising, which is also where you get to see the area from a little different angle. And it's very nice if you've been on land and then to kind of see it with the perspective of the ship. It's like seeing the same area, but with your binoculars on, in a sense. You kind of see it wider and bigger. And then, of course, with nature landings comes community visits, so it might be a combination of that. And wildlife spotting, I would say, is what is underestimated is when we do that from the vessel itself. It's outside on deck, but that's where you get higher up, and the opportunity to kind of see in a wider area is much bigger. So the ship cruising and wildlife spotting kind of goes hand in hand there. And then, of course, we have guided excursions or guided hikes. Remember, we are still in the Arctic. We are still in bear country, so we need to be careful on how we move around. Yeah. So, but we have these excursions, and we are constantly developing them too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We never stand still when we have a VP of expedition development in our thing. So it's always about moving forward. Yeah. But I think a really good way to think of an expedition with us is that the mothership or base camp as an opportunity to explore with the small boats, the different perspectives from kayaking, incredible, but also those access to places.
Good way of putting it, Tudor.
Of course, we are putting this big, massive area of the Earth's surface into one webinar. So this is a lot of generic talking here. But talk us through some of your favorite wildlife that.
Well, here you have a nice selection of what you may expect to see on this, like Tudor said, super vast area. There are a number of species that are using this environment as their home. Of course, there are some species that are a bit more shy than others, and that will be a bit more difficult to spot, but do not forget to bring a pair of binoculars with you, which will always help in spotting or getting to see these animals a bit closer if they are spotted. And it is a wide variety of incredible species that you get to see on land and ashore, as well as on cliffs. The bird cliffs in this area of the world are amazing. And amongst the land mammals that you may expect to see, we find the cute little guys like this Arctic fox or the musk oxen that we saw in the previous image, or reindeer or caribou. So it just be out on deck, take your binoculars, take them also to land, to the landings with you, so that you can spot and look for wildlife all of the time.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to remember is you have to be looking to see, very important with it. But also, you know, these are wildlife encounters. We're not in a zoo. I know it sounds obvious, but you know, we do our best to be in the right place at the right time to get those best experiences. But there are not guarantees for anybody. So it's trying to get to those right places. And I think for me, one of the things that diversity, we haven't put a slide in about the flora, but you know, the plant life is, you know, when you go ashore, and seeing what's surviving really on the edge is also a real highlight. Okay, I'm conscious of time, but we have done this massive area of the planet, but we do have a webinar series, and again, we will copy this and put it in the chat so you can follow up and look at it later. But we have a library of different destination-specific webinars like this, where we can dive in a lot further. So please use that if you'd like to find more. This webinar will also be recorded, so if you want to watch us again, then you can do that. One of the important things to say, of course, if you are interested, and you are, of course, here as invites with HX, we do have a loyalty program called HX Explorers. As a member of HX Explorers, you get 5% automatically when you enroll. So that gives you a discount on a voyage price. And if you've done a few trips with us based on number of days, then that goes up to a level 2 and you get a higher discount. As a standard with 5%, but also we have an offer on now for Explorers up to the 30th of June to get that extra discount. And we also have, as a little reward and teaser for you joining us today, an extra 5% that you can add to that for sale by using through our call center the HX Web Events 25 code, and you'll get a further 5%. So as Karin has said in another webinar, book now, no better time.
Yeah,
right, Karin?
yeah, That it is. Book now. Empty your savings account and go, because it's. I mean, life is too short. Life is too short, and I know, because the reason why I don't have hair is because I've just gone through cancer treatment, and when you go through stuff like that, I can tell you, life is short. So. Guys, get out there, book it, and enjoy your life, and just don't put anything on hold. Don't do it.
We're very happy though, Karin, that you're through the other side and your hair's growing again. So that's
yeah, it is. I'm starting to do. Yeah, you can actually see it. Yeah. No, so book. Yeah. Go.
You have our contact details because you're here with us, but again, we will share this in the chat. This is just a short reminder of the contact details for our different markets. So if you do need the phone number or the email, then please do contact our team who are ready to support you. I'm going to stop sharing screen now and ask Ollie to join us, and we will take your questions that have been coming through during the webinar. Hopefully that's stopped now. Have I stopped sharing?
It has.
Yep, you should stop. Yep.
Very good.
So I can see Tudor magnified now.
Oh dear.
Libby's not big enough. We don't need to magnify him anymore. But thank you very much, guys, for a fantastic presentation. Really engaging as ever. We've had a ton of questions. So I'm going to go from the top with the questions. And a personal story to start with. So Karin, Mr. David Cohen has mentioned that he sailed with you in Antarctica in 2013. His wife was in a wheelchair, and you were marvellous in getting her on shore for some of the landings. So good to see you've stayed with the company and moved up. We enjoyed our time with you. So, giving your little personal stories right now as well. That's fantastic.
Fantastic. She was sitting, I remember she was sitting on our landing bags when we took her ashore. So great to see. Great that you're here. Fantastic.
Lovely connection there.
Yeah.
And the next question is about how HX compares to the likes of Ponant, Seabourn, and Quark. I think it's fair to say we're probably sometimes a little bit humble about our benefits. So it'd be great if, I don't know, Tudor, Karin, Verena, if one of you would like to talk about the kind of, I mean, you touched on it at the start, Tudor, but maybe just, how we compare and what our USPs are.
You can start.
I'll start and then everyone else chip in. I think one of the really big things for me is that what we offer is not just our ships are purpose built like others, but our ships are very outward facing to look at the scenery. Our ships are bigger, which offer not just stability and less or fewer emissions in terms of the environment, but also having purpose-built science centres. And I'm not going to steal Verena's thunder, but those opportunities that we provide, we also invest a lot of time and energy behind the scenes in building relationships with communities. So we have boots on the ground. Some of our product team have recently just been in the Arctic, in these communities, preparing for these voyages now, and that's very much long-term relationships that we build. And I'm not sure, I don't. We have a lot of colleagues in other companies as well. So, but that investment that we make long-term, I think, really stands us out. Our score, our NP, we ask everybody, like we'll ask you at the end of this to give us feedback, but our feedback from our guests is really, we have really good high scores from our guests. So I think those elements really stand us out, as well as, Karin, I think between us, I was going to say we're approaching 100 years of experience, but maybe not that much, but we 60, have a lot. We'll take 60.
65.
We have a lot of experience in the company building into these things, but the science and education program and sustainability is really up there. But Verena, maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe just quick. We have established long-term collaborations, not only with the communities that we visit, but also with research institutions that we support, to which we offer our ships as platforms of opportunity. And I think that what differentiates us the most to all of the other operators is that we make this part of the guest experience, if not the central part of our guest experience, is to be a part of the science, of the research that we are providing that will inform them about the ecosystem they are visiting. It will allow them to immerse themselves and hopefully live to our sentence that you, Tudor, said at the very beginning of this webinar. We hope this experience will help you change the way you see the world.
Hallelujah to that.
Great
But
answers.
can I just don't get us started, Ollie, with this stuff, because we're going to go. We can
we
keep
could be
going.
here all night, right?
But I want to just put a little effort to or to what we do in the industry setting as well, because we have both Ponant and we have Quark and Adventure Canada and those who are operating in these areas also alongside us. I mean, we are actually working as a community within the industry, and HX is taking quite an important place in that sphere. So we are a voice, a very important voice into how this industry is developing and how we are engaging with the communities, because this is vulnerable areas we're talking about, and we have a responsibility, and that means constantly updating ourselves and being part of the conversation. And I would say that we really are, and we put a lot of effort into that every year. So as much as we are competitors, I would say we are also to a certain degree colleagues, because we are caring about the same environment in the same place. And it's
really well
important.
put. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, so next question. I think on the Northwest Passage, a couple of people weren't totally clear on the route options. So if you could potentially just articulate those a little bit more, maybe Tudor. And there's a question about whether we've ever had to cancel due to sea ice blocking the Northwest Passage route.
Yeah, sorry if I wasn't 100% clear. Yeah, so we have two sailings that go through the full transit of the Northwest Passage. One starts in Nuuk in Greenland and does the east to west crossing to Nome, and that's on Nansen. And we do the reverse from Nome back across, heading east to Greenland. So that's on Armenton. So we do this with the two ships. So they're, one's one way and the other one's back to front. So there's those two options. The sweet spot for sailing through the Northwest Passage, which if you look at our more detailed webinar, ice is very important in a Northwest Passage going transit. And there is a sweet spot in August, which we hit in our transit. In 2018, it was an incredibly high mobile ice year, and a lot of ice got stuck. So we had to make plan B, but we weren't trying to do a full transit that year. So we were coming in and out. So we've never had to cancel a full transit, but we've had to make some alterations where we had that high ice, but that wasn't a full transit year.
No, that was a Cambridge Bay, Greenland Cambridge Bay itinerary, which we had to cut short and stay in the Lancaster Sound area for that trip because there were just too much ice. One of those anomaly years.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Verena, in terms of the average temperatures guests can expect during Alaska, Northwest Passage, Arctic Canada Voyage, do you have a kind of range?
All of those. Well, it is summertime, so it may vary. In bad weather conditions, it can go down to 0 degrees, 32 Fahrenheit, but you can also expect to have sunny, warm days of up to 10, 15 degrees. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tudor, Karin. But the secret is to always carry enough layers to adapt to the conditions. So if it's too warm, you wear a few layers, and then if it gets colder, you just continue piling them up until you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Alaska is average 10 to 20 is summer temperature, or 50 to 17 in Fahrenheit. Yeah.
And it's fair to say on board it's about 20 degrees normally, right?
20, yeah, 20, 21.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Celsius.
Thank you. And then, Karin, there's a question, or a couple of questions actually, around given the size of ships, what is the program and the opportunity to do the incredible landings that we offer, and how do we kind of manage that?
If we do a landing, it's for we have managed to create a system that we can get everybody ashore. So we extend our landing sites or landing time to be able to accommodate everyone. So we have an intricate system for landing procedures for all our guests, but it works really well. It's a well-oiled machine, that one. So that's the landing side of it. What was the other?
Yeah, that was the theme really, of just around how do we accommodate everybody to do the landings really. So
yeah, everybody is able to do it in so we kind of rotate the landing groups as well, so that if you're first one day, then you're not necessarily last the next day, but we rotate. So we try to make sure that everybody get closer to being first at some point.
Yeah,
great.
So we would tend to have the ship in one place for longer to allow that throughput, but we also do. Verena's team has a lot of activities on board, so that immersive part. So there's never a dull moment, and we also, depending on the location, we'll do small boat cruising at the same time as landing.
Or kayaking.
So there's kayaking. So there's a lot going on.
We try to pile on as many multiple activities as possible within reason in polar bear areas and so forth on a voyage like this, and weather permitted, of course. Yeah.
Brilliant. And that links into a question around kayaking. So Karin is the queen of kayaking, and apparently scaring Tudor with kayaking. Kayaking on Seabourn apparently costs $200 per person. Sign-ups are required in advance and often sell out quickly, making it impossible to kayak more than once on our Antarctic 10-night sailing. How is the queue handled on the HX, and the cost?
So as of now, and don't take this for being complete, because we just changed prices a little bit, we are around 179 euros or something like that for a trip, and then we also have a sign-up system, but you sign up on board because you are given a briefing about what the kayak program is from the actual guides. Then you sign up and you sign a waiver, and then we divide people into groups, and then it's group A, B, and C, and we try to get them out and accommodate as many as possible, which goes back to why we also stay a bit longer than other operators, to be able to maybe do 2 kayak groups out rather than just one, like many of our competitors do, because they are in a rush to get to the next place, and we try to then be able to accommodate more
people.
More people, exactly.
Fantastic. I'm conscious of time, so just one final question. So the question is around the West Arctic and which tour we'd particularly recommend for seeing wildlife in the West Arctic. So I don't know, Verena or Tudor, would you like to cover that one?
Well, in terms of wildlife, Alaska.
Alaska.
Yeah.
Oh, Alaska.
I would think so, yes.
The variety of wildlife and the proximity in Alaska, I think, is higher than the other areas we've spoken about.
Yes.
So yeah, I totally agree with you there, Verena. Of course, I would never doubt Dr. Meraldi.
Me neither. I would never do that.
Yeah.
Well,
but
sorry,
there is a dimension to it, though, Ollie, which I think we should kind of just mention, and that is in the large part of the Arctic that we've been talking about today. A lot of this wildlife we're talking about is hunted. It is used in
subsistence. Yes.
Yes. So I mean, them being skittish, to humans comes from several factors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Brilliant. That concludes the Q&A and the webinar. And thank you guys very much for joining us today, and thank you to the presenters for fantastic talk. The only thing that remains to be said is to please ensure that you complete the survey that will pop up as and when the webinar closes. But thanks to everyone again, and we'll share the recording with you tomorrow.
And hope to see you on board.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just go and book now. That's your next. That's your next task on your program for today. Book a Hurtigruten.
HX.
HX.
Yeah. Sorry, HX. This is bad. This is the old habits. I'm sorry. I've been in the company too long.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
HX.
And
Bye.
until next
Bye,
time.
everyone.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.